I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Will Moss. I am the founder and CEO of HBCUconnect.com. And this evening, we are going to have a presentation, welcome you guys to meet the Microsoft team CSEO, Course Services, Engineering and Operations. Very happy to welcome everyone on the call. I know people will be joining in as we get started, but we will be recording this session so that if you don't catch the whole session, you'll be able to view it afterwards, okay? So like I said, everyone that joins in, please make sure you stay on mute. If you have questions, please use the chat window. And there's a chat window in Microsoft Teams that you can utilize. And there will be a Q&A towards the end of the presentation where we'll allow you guys to ask questions through the chat. And then I will read off those questions to the Microsoft CSEO team members that are on the call. So don't forget to hit mute if you could. And then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so the agenda for this evening, like I said, I'll give you guys a welcome, introduce you to myself, my organization, the history of our relationship with Microsoft. Then I will hand it off to our keynote speaker for the evening, who is going to be Stanley Grant with Microsoft. After Stanley presents and gives you guys some background information on himself, his Microsoft journey, and the organization, then we'll go into team introductions. So the purpose of the team introductions will be to get you guys a little bit more familiar with the Microsoft CSEO team and some of the people that work on the team so that you can get to know who they are and then formulate some questions that you can ask later on in the presentation. And then also you'll not only get to know them a little bit better, but the point will be for you to understand more about the CSEO organization and some of the roles and responsibilities of program managers and software engineers within the organization. So after the team introductions and learning a little bit more about those teams, then we'll go into a panel discussion where I have prepared a few questions for the team, and then I'll ask those questions. We'll dig a little bit deeper, getting to know the Microsoft culture and opportunities within CSEO. And then after the panel discussion, we'll have the live Q&A. So that'll be your chance to type in questions into the chat box. And then I'll read off some of those questions and present them to different team members that are here on the webinar. All right, so after live Q&A, we'll go into the event ending and next steps and basically share what you guys can do to make sure you present yourselves for a possible interview with the team. And so one thing I like to really emphasize is that these events that we do with Microsoft, they're typically on-site, in-person events, but due to the current health crisis, I like to say thank you and kudos to Microsoft for not canceling events that we had lined up, because this particular event was going to be a physical event in North Carolina. But due to the current health crisis, we decided to not cancel the event, but to host it online to give people the same opportunity to learn more about Microsoft and CSEO and dig a little bit deeper to be able to have that interaction to ask questions. So we pivoted to virtual events, but there's still the same opportunity for you to get a potential interview and a potential job opportunity with Microsoft. So that's sort of the purpose of these events, the reason why we're currently hosting the events virtual. And so thank you guys for taking the time out to join us. To give you a little bit of history about Microsoft and HBCU Connect, we've been working together since probably the last 8 or 9 years. Originally, our relationship was primarily online through HBCUconnect.com and Microsoft sharing their job opportunities with HBCU Connect's members, where we're primarily an audience of African American and Latino candidates and professionals, that are educated, that come from different backgrounds. And so typically the relationship, or historically the relationship, was online, but the challenge was making sure our candidates got to interface with the hiring managers and recruiters at Microsoft. So we pitched the idea of doing these events in person and allowing a select group of professionals that have the experience that Microsoft is looking for in one place where they could meet with hiring managers, meet with recruiters, and then have conversations that align with specific opportunities, and then interviews, and then hires could happen. And so we've been doing this particular, these types of events, like I said, for the last 8 or 9 years. And every year, Microsoft has stepped up to the plate to provide opportunities for our members. So thank you guys for joining us, like I said, and thank you to Microsoft for continuing to partner with HBCU Connect. So with that, I'd like to prepare to hand it over to Stanley Grant, who's a partner director of engineering for commercial sales and marketing within CSEO. And he's also a 25-year Microsoft veteran. So Stanley, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and hand over the presentation to you.
And everyone, hopefully everyone can hear me fine. So as said, my name is Stanley Grant. I've been at Microsoft for 25 years. I spent 24 years of that in Office. I worked on Outlook from the very first version up until around 2007 or so. And then I switched over to work on SharePoint, where I got to experience transforming an on-prem product, SharePoint, into a service with Office 365. And so I was part of the team that actually first stood up SharePoint in the service and turned it from, or changed it from an on-prem product into a service that we can actually go and have subscriptions for. We merged OneDrive and SharePoint together, and so I got to work on OneDrive as well. And then about a year ago, almost exactly, I actually made the change to come over to the commercial sales and marketing team. I had worked with a number of people in the CSEO organization, including my current boss, John Jenderzak, the president of the division, Kurt Deldaney, I've worked with before. And they told me about great opportunities in CSEO, and CSEO is essentially transforming from more of a traditional IT organization into a product engineering organization. And that was fascinating to me. And I thought that it was a great opportunity for me to learn something new, because I've been on the product side of things for a long time and really didn't understand the business side of things. So it was a good chance for me to understand more about the business side of Microsoft. And it was also an opportunity for me to really leverage my experience in an organization that's really transforming and refocusing their effort around core engineering and core engineering skills, and growing out the services that we provide in CSEO in a modern engineering way. That's a journey that we've been on for a number of years. We're continuing along that journey. Microsoft as a whole is in that journey. CSEO I view as an organization that is in that journey at an earlier stage than some of the product teams, and quickly catching up. And one of the things that we've done in CSEO is bring in leaders from the product teams to help with that transformation. And that's one of the reasons that I'm here. And I made that transition a year ago, and have no regrets looking back on it. It's been remarkable over the last 25 years just to watch the transformation that Microsoft as a whole has gone through. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. When I joined the company, we were in the process of what I'll call our second transformation. I'd say the first was when we went from MS-DOS, working on very early versions of x86 processors, and really Microsoft was about microprocessor computers, the personal computer wave. And I came in, and Windows 95 is this new thing that we were just pushing out, and that was kind of the second transformation. when we started to create the suite of products that we call Office today, Windows really came into being and really came into its own. And then we kind of got into the third transformation. We went into services around Azure, Office 365, Microsoft 365, and we're in the midst of that now. One of the things I find remarkable about Microsoft as a company is there are some unique things about Microsoft. Most companies get one shot at really being relevant, and so they have their day in the sun, and then generally, either gradually or quickly fade into less relevance. And Microsoft is in its third period of relevance. First with MS-DOS and the personal computer, and then with Windows and Office in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then we have a bit of a rough spot where we were relatively static for about 10 years. And now with services, we're really coming into our own yet again. And that's somewhat of a unique experience. So that's it's a really exciting time to be a part of the company and be part of both a cultural transformation internally as well as externally, cultural transformation from the way we do business with other people. And a good example of that would be if I wound the clock back 15 years ago and someone were to tell me that we were going to be creating a version of Word or a Apple phone, that it would be the primary experience, like it would be the first experience that we would actually produce for, and it would be what we want it to be the best experience. And that would be laughable 15 years ago. Today, that actually is true. We actually released the Office versions of the iOS versions of the software first. We actually implement features there. We do work there, the Android version as well. And then 132 is just another one of the release mediums that we have to go and release our software. And that's been a really, really great transformation. And as a company, we are transforming from competing with everyone. Like that was actually the way that we did things 15 years ago. We competed with everyone. Everything was a competition and it was all about winning. And now it's more about winning together. We partner with companies. We partner and actually allow people to go and have a footprint in the ecosystem that we create. A good example of another place that we're partnering is around Adobe. One of the biggest projects I have on my team is essentially reorienting our marketing communications platform from what we use today to running on top of Adobe. We're going to be putting Microsoft.com on top of Adobe. And we're partnering with Adobe, and we're actually going to be selling Adobe products in Azure in a partnership with them. And that's the way that we do business today, and that's not the way we did business in the past. And so that's been something that's been a bit of a transformation for us. I'm going to take a step back now and just focus in and talk a little bit about the core service engineering and operations team, CSEO. What it's about, why it's exciting to work for, and what it might mean. When I think about not commercial sales and marketing, core services engineering, I look back at how it's evolved over time too, and it was an area that was very traditional IT. It was very vendor-driven, very transactional in terms of the way that we did projects, and that type of engineering can create a mess, and it did for us. Where essentially the tools that we built, the things that we did, really didn't connect to one another. We didn't reuse as much code as we could. If you walk from one experience to another, you could kind of see the seams in our organization, and it really wasn't built from the standpoint of a long-term product engineering point of view. And one of the things that Kurt Delbaney, who is the head of the organization, has done is really repivoted the organization around building the internal tools that our employees used to get their jobs done in the same way that product engineering works. And it's actually been remarkable. A lot of the experiences that we have created in this disjointed way, we're bringing together. We're leveraging the products that are built, things like Office 365, Azure, Dynamics, and utilizing those to go and create experiences for our internal employees, which makes us actually use our own product in better ways. And it's been a remarkable journey. When I look at the work done in the CSEO organization, it's almost identical in terms of the type of work that we do to product engineering. We write C# code, we write C++ code. We do large like big data. We have teams that are writing machine learning models and doing work around machine learning and AI. All of that is happening inside core services engineering, and that's not where we were 15 years ago. Like, the work that we're doing in the core services engineering is very much the same as the work that we do outside of core services engineering. And it kind of breaks down into, and I'm speaking from an engineering standpoint more than anything else, product engineering, meaning product, technical PM, software engineering. CSE, the core service engineering portion of the organization, is really broken up into 5 different pieces. The portion that I'm part of is the sales and marketing shared engineering team, which contains my team, which is commercial sales and marketing team, as well as teams that are doing what we call the data team. The data team actually is building a big data repository for the company to go house its internal data. We have a studio team, which has designers, it has researchers, things that actually help us understand the problems that employees are running into, as well as creating a cohesive experience across the portfolio for the product. And these are services that are run across CSEO. We have a workforce team, which focuses on recruiting. It focuses on making sure onboarding works, as well as just making sure that the way that we do business internally as a workforce is cohesive and healthy. Then we have a venture team. So when we do acquisitions, how do we integrate new organizations into Microsoft, their systems and our systems, combining them together in a way that works. And then we have a consumer sales and marketing team, which focuses on things like our physical stores, as well as for how we sellers and marketers go and actually sell our consumer products. My team focuses on commercial products. And so that's the sales and marketing engineering organization, or the sales, marketing, and shared experiences organization. I keep coming back to my own acronym. Second team I'll talk about is the end user experiences team and end user services team. The end user services team, or EUSC, is all about the productivity of employees in the company. They do a lot of work to go and make sure that employees have the best experience possible. One of the biggest projects that they're working on is an innovative app, which is on iOS and Android, called MyHub. And MyHub is all about taking the disjoint experiences, like where do I go to do time card reporting? Where do I go and time card reporting being when I take a day off, where do I go and report that information? How do I figure out what's available in the cafeteria today? How do I get a shuttle from point A to point B? And bringing that all together in a single mobile application, and they're doing that work from the ground up, and it's an engineering product. They're creating essentially a internally facing product that our employees will be using. They haven't released it fully yet. Will be using to just get their daily jobs done, go from building to building, figure out what's for lunch. All of that is an end user services engineering organization. And then we have core foundations engineering, which is all about the way that we, number one, manage our people. So all of our HR systems are managed out of that team, as well as how we manage our money. Our finance organization actually leverages the core function engineering deeply. And so if you think about that, Microsoft makes a ton of money every quarter. I think it's on the order of 20 billion or so every quarter. All of that comes from a lot of different sources, a lot of different countries, and all of it has to be centrally aggregated together so that we can report out for SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission, to declare this is what we did this quarter. This is actually what our revenue was. This is what our taxes were. All the information that we use to tell our shareholders, how we did in our financial projecting, all that runs through that system, as well as, and it's very deeply tied to my organization with sales and marketing engineering, because sellers are always trying to fill that pipeline and make sure that we're meeting our targets and that we're doing a good job with regard to selling to customers. And so a lot of things in our organization are very interrelated, like human resources, another example. A seller is a person that we have to integrate with human resources systems. And so our systems are very tightly integrated, and it's core engineering work that actually gets it done. And then we have the CPE team, which is sorry, I have to remember the acronym, but essentially it's the internal tools, core platform engineering, which is the internal tools that CSEO as a whole uses to do its job. So things like our Azure DevOps environment is managed by that team. We also have things like supply chain for the physical things that we use to do our jobs. Networking sits with that team. There's a lot of functions that engineers use to get their jobs done, as well as employees in general use to get their jobs done. Networking, core tools that we use for Azure DevOps and things like that, that sit with that organization, and they build the common tool set that we use to do a lot of the engineering work in CSEO. And then finally, sorry, I'm just making sure I'm capturing everything. We have the security team, DSRE, which is Digital Security and Risks organization. And they are essentially our security arm. And this isn't just for CSEO, this is for Microsoft as a whole, making sure that we're adhering to the right standards as far as static analysis, making sure that we're handling data correctly, making sure that we're following privacy practices. Essentially, they are the team that makes sure that everyone in Microsoft is doing what needs to be done to protect both customers' data as well as our internal data and privacy, and we're following the right standards to make sure that we're being good citizens with regard to security and privacy. And so that team does a ton of work across the company to make sure that everything that Microsoft does and all the tooling that we build, all the software that we build, meets the security and compliance requirements. So that's kind of an overview of CSEO as a whole. There are members of the panel that will go into more detail about their individual areas and will do a much better job than I will, because I work primarily on the commercial sales and marketing side of things. But that's in a nutshell kind of who I am, a little bit about what CSEO is, and that kind of wraps up my portion of it. So
now, before we move on, Stanley, I'd like to just allow people the chance to get to know you a little bit better and ask you a couple of questions that I'll ask everybody on the Microsoft panel, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So quick question, what was your path to Microsoft? So your journey, how did you end up working at Microsoft? And what was your first position? And then what is sort of a day in the life now for you?
All right, let's start at the beginning, how I got to be at Microsoft. So my education, I went to Caltech and I studied physics. And if you asked me back then, I don't think I would have answered it this way, but looking back, kind of the hindsight is 2020, I think that I had a bit of a desire to go improve myself, to go and prove that I belong, really. And so I picked the hardest school I could think of. I picked the hardest major at that school I could think of, and I pursued it. And I did okay with it. It's not that I did poorly with Caltech or with physics or anything like that. I was getting ready to go to graduate school, and I was applying to graduate schools, and I realized one day, I really don't like this. I don't enjoy physics. It's the hardest thing I could think of. I'm doing okay at it, but do I really want to be doing that with the rest of my life? I ended up staying a fifth year and picked up a dual major, computer science and physics, applied to Microsoft, and I was actually really passionate about computer science in the first place. All my internships I loved, and what I really liked about them were things like Monte Carlo simulations, doing 3D analytics and things like that for physical systems, and all of that was really software, and I realized the software is really where it's at. And so I applied to Microsoft. I got in. I joined the Outlook group. This is straight out of college. And I worked on Outlook for about 10 years. And I worked as an individual contributor. I ended up being a lead, which is essentially managing individual contributors. So people moving your way up the chain. And essentially worked my way up to where I am today as a director of engineering for commercial sales and marketing. Day in the life for me, is not what you would experience. Like my day is almost all meetings. So I spend most of my time in meetings, meeting with people, talking with people. There's a lot of interactions that take place. I still do love coding and actually code on a regular basis still. I don't do it for my primary, as my primary job anymore, but like pretty much every day, if I were to show you my desktop, you would absolutely see Visual Studio on any machine I have. And usually I spend some time in the evenings, not every day, but like I spend some time coding every day. I love doing it, and it keeps me up to date on what the latest and greatest is. And realistically, I have a belief that in order to be a leader of engineers, you have to understand what they do and be able to do what they do. And so I believe that keeping the toolkit sharp on the basics of what it really means to be an engineer is important, and I keep up on top of that.
So the last two quick questions are: where are you from originally, and why do you feel Microsoft is a great place to work for you personally?
So I'm from Dallas originally. I grew up there. A lot of my family is still there. So to answer that quickly, as far as why Microsoft is a great place to work, as a software engineer, I think it's a wonderful place to work because Microsoft is involved in just about every aspect of software. And it's obviously very possible to have an entire career at Microsoft and doing just about every technology problem you can imagine. If I want to work on databases, I can go do that at Microsoft. If I want to work on graphics, I can do that at Microsoft. If I want to work in IT, I can do that at Microsoft. And I can essentially follow my passions in software engineering and all within the same company. There's not many places where you can say that. If I want to go do gaming, we have a gaming division. Like every aspect of software, we do it. And I love that about the company. It really keeps me fresh. It really gives me the opportunities that I want. Even within a product team, there's always different aspects of software that you're able to get into. And I really love that.
Excellent. So I appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences working for Microsoft and your knowledge on CSEO so that people can get a better understanding of the organization. So with that, I want to introduce our next presenter, which is Kamika Dillard. Kamika actually is interesting because she's got an MBA background, and I know a lot of the candidates on this call or webinar have a background in not just software engineering, but also in program management and business operations. So Kamika, if you're ready, I'd like to hand over the controls to you to kind of present, your Microsoft journey, what you do there at Microsoft, and especially for those people out there that are considering opportunities in program management. You guys might want to save some questions for Kamika once we get to the Q&A. So Kamika, if you're ready, I'll hand over the presentation to you.
Hey everyone, nice to digitally meet everyone. Very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this panel. I am fairly new to Microsoft. I actually started in December of 2018, and they say that you can use your newbie card for a whole year. I think I get a little bit more of a pass because we have a pandemic, so I'm going to utilize it a little bit longer. I do have a pretty unique background. I'm not a software engineer. I actually have an MBA in finance from Pepperdine Grazio Diaz School of Business. Prior to coming to Microsoft, I actually worked in fintech in Atlanta. So I will say that I guess I am not your typical Microsoftie. I have no engineering background. Even my undergrad was in political science. So I actually work in the O part of CSEO. I'm in operations, and I love it. A lot of my background is in ops. With Microsoft Business Operations, our leader, Mary Ellen, she's really responsible for the way that we do business for the entire company. We launch, we transact, we improve and protect processes, and we close gaps. I actually work in core CDAS, and there's always a lot of acronyms at Microsoft, but CDAS stands for Compliance Data Analytics Services. But even when you hear that part, what I do is still really unique because I work in our partner space. I'm a partner operations program manager. And what does that mean? It means that I help to ensure that the digital transformation that Microsoft is doing internally within operations is beneficial and keeps at the forefront of mind our partners' needs and desires to ensure that we're doing business the best way possible for our partners. I work on vision, which is one of the tenets underneath Kurt Delbenet's CSEO product vision. I work on partner vision, which I really, really enjoy. Did not think I would wind up working with or still wind up being partner facing, working in ops, and it just wind up being a great opportunity. Right now, our partners are experiencing the effect of a change in such a huge environment due to COVID. So we are really trying to ensure that we can keep our partners going. One thing I love about being in ops is that whole we make sure everyone keeps running, but also just like being super thoughtful and considerate about how we approach things. I will kind of pause there. That's a little bit about me and kind of what I work on.
Cool. So, like I said, I have a few questions that I'll ask each of you guys. And so I'll start with the first one, which is, how did you end up working for Microsoft? Like, what were you? Were you university? You said fintech.
Fintech, yeah. I'm not a university hire. Actually graduated from B school about almost 10 years ago. Black don't crack, yay. I was recruited through National Black MBA Association through the actual conference that took place in 2018 in Detroit. So I applied online via that conference, interviewed at that conference, and was extended an offer at that conference. It's a pretty cool story actually, because, and I don't know if a lot of people know about this that work with me in Microsoft, but actually when I graduated from business school, I had applied for Microsoft, and there was a hiring freeze that took place, and this was back in 2011. And, I was just really nervous. It was like at the height of the recession, and full circle, I still wind up coming back and working for such a phenomenal company. So, so I'm not a university hire, and we, hire people from a variety of backgrounds, and I'm pretty evident of that.
Where are you from originally? And then if you can get into a little bit about why Microsoft for you personally is a great place to work.
Yeah, I'm actually from California. I live and reside in Redmond. Right now I'm in Cali, helping out with my mom, who's a little bit older. Why Microsoft? When I was looking for my next opportunity, I was very meticulous about thinking about who I worked from a cultural perspective. So I was really looking at a company that really looked and valued their people. So people first before anything. And my entire process from start to finish, the culture that Microsoft lives and preach around growth mindset, around people and wanting to make sure we take care of our people has always been evident. And even throughout like us dealing with, the crisis that's happening right now, our leadership has just been super thoughtful in terms of ensuring that we take care of our people. So I chose Microsoft based on the culture. And I had other options because of the conference, but the culture that Microsoft live, especially not just around taking care of the people, but ensuring that we have a diverse and inclusive culture, it is evident. It bleeds in our values. It bleeds in our work. So they don't just talk it, we really live it there.
So 2 final questions for you specifically. So if I'm a program manager with a similar background to yourself, I'm considering Microsoft, what's a day in a life like for you? And then also, if you could touch on Blacks at Microsoft, the ERG, and your experience.
Okay. So I know this sounds cliche when I say it, but no day is typical. A day in my life involves ensuring that I'm doing a lot of interaction with my stakeholders. So my stakeholders span across not just operations, but across other parts of Microsoft, which includes like the people who help sell products to partners, run commercial partners, people who help with our device sales. So a lot of my days are involved around ensuring I know what my stakeholders are doing, and then I'm able to communicate to them effectively. Did they consider this part of the digital transformation that we're doing on our side when they're thinking about how they're going to go and, translate the needs and desires of partners? So it's a lot of stakeholder management in my role. I do a lot. I would say 70% of my job is dealing with my stakeholders. And then I would say the other 30% of my job is around the CSEO Blacks at Microsoft initiatives that I'm involved in. So as the co-lead around the recruiting pillar specifically, I have a lot of interactions with understanding what we're doing from a hiring perspective, ensuring that the stakeholders are the people who are involved in having these job recs are aware of events like this. So being thoughtful around our onboarding process, we did some cool things around how we recruit, how people interview to improve that process. So a lot of what we do is ensuring that, one, people at the forefront of mind within CSEO knows that we have needs and desires, that we want to make sure that all the job openings are available to various people of various backgrounds and help around some of that. So that's what I do within CSEO. BAM chapter.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'm sure some people will have some questions lined up once we get into the Q&A for yourself. But I'd like to go ahead and pivot to our next speaker, who is Jaya Anamali. So Jaya, if you're ready, so just a little bit of background. Jaya is actually a senior software engineer within CSEO. So I know a lot of people that are on the call do have a software engineering background and are interested in what it would be like to work for CSEO as a software engineer. So Jaya, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and pass the presentation over to you.
Thanks, Will. Hi, everyone. Good evening and good afternoon. I'm Jaya, and I'm at Microsoft for more than 3 years with an industry experience of 13. I am part of end user services engineering as a senior software engineer, and one of the team I'm working on is the campus modernization, or it is called digital transformation. And also the other part we are working on is to reimagining the employee experience. As part of our campus modernization, the motto or vision of our goal is to create a connected, secured, accessible, and secured workplace for all the employees at Microsoft, as well as have the similar experience across all over the globe. The immediate requirement we got was like at Redmond campus. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it. We have demolished all our old buildings and then creating a new digital workplace environment. There are two part of it. As from the real estate facilities, we would like to modernize our campus, and also from the software perspective, we would like to digitally evolve our campus. So the main vision we have it in our mind is like we are creating a campus for a people who will come, who is now in education, probably like after 5 years, when they want to come and work on Microsoft, what kind of an experience we would like to give for a Microsoft employees, as well as the visitors who will visit the campus. There are like the My Hub is one of the experience which Stanley mentioned, which is like an reimagining the employee experience. We would like to have a one mobile experience where whatever the employee wants to do it, they can go ahead and do it. The current situation, if you want to know about COVID-19, there is this app should be able to give you the learning resources and what you need to do, or whom do you need to contact in case of any emergencies or everything. The same way, if you want to transportation or a dining, or if you want to record your time of those related things, we are doing it. And the other part of the work is like modernizing the campus, which we are working with IoT, Azure Digital Twin, which is still in Microsoft preview mode, to modernize our digital workplace.
So, quick question that I know a lot of software engineering candidates would probably want to know would be, what technologies are you typically using in the environment, or what technologies do you see being used by software engineers within CSEO, like what languages and that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So we have a variety of technologies. We can we group it in a 4-5 different buckets. One is like web experience, mobile experience, kiosk experience. The other internal tools are being used. In the web, we have a all type of a language: C Sharp, React, Angular JS, and everything is being used. As well as when we take for mobile, we are creating applications for iOS as well as Android using React. On the kiosk, we are using like the .NET Core, and I can actually name all the products in Azure which we are using it. The database, we are having Cosmos DB, SQL DB, Azure Functions. We have the new technologies like IoT, Internet of Things. There is a new, we actually want to represent a physical workspace in a digital world. The example is like Azure Active Directory, where you can actually find out your organization. The same way we want to represent a campus from Microsoft. Then there will be like 6 regions are available, and each region, how many buildings are allocated, and what is the workspace, and what all the peoples are sitting over there. Till that level we are building up. That is in the Azure Digital Twin. And yeah, there are a lot of variety of technologies itself available in the EUSC organization.
How did you end up working at Microsoft? So, what was your path to Microsoft?
So I'm a .NET developer actually. So when I started my career, I started with my .NET, and I was in India, and I moved to Kansas for my another work. But once when I was doing .NET coding itself, I have a passion that I want to be part of a Microsoft at one point of a time. So when I was ready to move, I prepared for myself, and then I applied for Microsoft. I did have other offers in some other companies, but the way they presented the interviewers who have taken the interviews to me, the opportunities was given to me was really like I was really passionate to work. Then I would like that's how I end up in Microsoft, and I have never regretted joining Microsoft, because it's being like awesome career for last 3 years, and especially the digital modernization which we are doing it. It's a lot of cool technologies we are using it, because now we are in IoT world. So I tend to use all the latest technologies, and then do all the spikes and do the POCs, and then especially help and empower everyone in Microsoft. Yeah.
Excellent. So that kind of leads into my last question for you, which is, for you personally, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft?
I do have a couple of things. The first one is like, before I joined Microsoft, I haven't heard about something called accessibility. I never had that kind of an vision in my software development. So I develop a project, but I never consider accessibility is one of the main factor. But after joining Microsoft, the importance and giving to all the people, the one of the satyas is like empower everyone in the globe. So that is being started in my software development cycle itself. When I design a product, we will think about accessibility. So that is one of the things I love about Microsoft. The next one is like this, the technology, the way the variety of option is given to me. If I get bored in one project, I have an option to move to some other product team or some other technology. Being a human, you will get to bored quickly, right? So I have a lot of options to move from one place to another place, and the learning resources available inside the Microsoft. And the last one is like, I can reach out to anyone at any time at Microsoft. So those are all the things I would say.
Excellent. So I hope the software engineers out there are kind of taking notes. So thank you, Jaya. And with that, I'd like to move on to our next presenter, which is Jessica Lowe. Jessica has a background also in program management and business operations. And Jessica is also on the Women in Microsoft ERG. So Jessica, if you're ready, I'll share the presentation now with you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Lowe. I've been a part of Microsoft for, I would say, almost 2 years now. 3 months short of being 2 years here at Microsoft. I, just like Kamika, I'm part of business operations, but we are kind of on a different, there are two, well, maybe 5 different major parts of MBO, but I'm on a different one as CDAS. So I am part of the organization called Planning and Launch. Our major responsibility is focusing on product and programs launching and making sure that new products, programs, and offerings are delivered to market efficiently and compliantly. And specifically, my team and my role, I focus on building the launch infrastructure for all of our launches. So, for example, we build a Dynamics tool, a Power Apps tool, a BI reporting for all of our launches to make sure that our stakeholders are able to deliver these new launches to market. My background, I graduated from my undergrad in 2018, spring of 2018, from the University of Washington in Seattle. My academic background is in finance and information systems. And I joined directly out of college as an Aspire hire. So there's a program at Microsoft called the Microsoft Aspire Experience, formerly known as the MOC program, which stands for acronyms, which stands for Microsoft Academic College Hires. Now that it's been rebranded to Aspires. And so essentially it's a program where for all the college hires to get together and learn about each other, learn about, kind of getting our first job in the professional world. There's a lot of support program for the Aspires. It's a worldwide program, and at the end of the year, we could even go to one of the biggest events of Microsoft, which takes place in Las Vegas. So it's a 2-year-long program, and I'm really grateful to say that I am part of it, and I'm also leading the effort for Aspires for the Redmond operations team as well. And basically, I have also, in addition to being a part of the Aspires, I'm also on the core team for Women of CSEO. I kind of got involved initially I reached out to someone, was like, hey, I saw this poster in this elevator for this event called DigiGirls, and I thought it was really interesting. Can I help plan it this year? And she was really nice, and she was on the core team, and she's like, yeah, sure, like we would love to have you. And so after being involved in that event, I slowly got myself involved in the core team, and then which is kind of led me to where I am today. The core team has I think a number of almost 10 people. And essentially, our mission is to bring all the women of CSEO together, or men, women or men, CSEO together, and kind of empower each other, help each other build professional development skills, kind of share advice on career development. We also do community outreach events. And yeah, that's basically my Microsoft experience in a nutshell.
So with your background as a program manager within CSEO, can you speak a little bit about your typical day in the life for you for all of the program manager candidates?
Yeah. So I would say my experience has been very unique, where I've been here for 2 years, and my first year, let's say my role in my first year and my role in my second year has been completely different. Like just I wouldn't, a year ago or 2 years ago when I joined, there's no way I would imagine myself being where I am and doing what I do today. I would say generally my role revolves a lot around working with different lines of business. Either it's working with analytics, working with governance, corporate governance, or working with engineers. There's always a lot of stakeholder management, like Kamika said. There's always a lot of project management. And then I would say the third piece of the pie would be a lot of kind of executional stuff, which is what is different about my second year than my first year. So a lot of stakeholders management and also executing on our goals, executing, building stuff in our Power Apps, making sure that, our stakeholders are happy. We want the features that they want to be working, and kind of helping them achieve their goals, as well as helping our team align with our mission as well.
Excellent. So you already spoke to your path to Microsoft through like the Aspire program, but for you personally, why is Microsoft a great place to work? What's your sales pitch?
I would say I actually, before this call, I was scrolling through my email, and we have this annual kind of like a pulse survey, and the results came out. And one thing that really stuck to me when I was reading that email is that the question was, how do you feel about working at Microsoft? And it was like a word cloud thing. And the most popular word, so the biggest word in the word cloud, was proud. And I remember looking through that, and I think back in my first day at Microsoft, at the orientation, the guy who was leading the orientation said, we don't work at Microsoft to be cool, we make other people cool. And so when I think about that, I'm like, well, I guess it wasn't cool 2 years ago to other people that we work here, but today I feel like I actually can say it's really cool to work for the most valuable company in the world, and I want to say it's really proud to be a part of this company because one, there's so many values that I see that the company actually, we don't just talk about it, we actually do it. Being, a 22-year-old joining a massive company like this, I feel like a lot of my perspectives, my fresh perspectives that I brought to the team, to the org, were actually valued. For example, one of my smaller pet projects that I had initially, like for the first year, that I was working with on the side, I really was doing it just because I was interested in it. And then we brought it to a hackathon, and then now it's turning to this whole org-wide application, and so it turned into this huge project. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that I feel like we really do live our values, and we care about what everyone has to bring to the table, no matter who they are, no matter, they just got out of college 6 months ago. I feel like my values and my opinion and my perspectives are being valued just like everybody else.
Excellent. Appreciate all of you for kind of presenting on your areas within CSEO. So now I'd like to move on to ask you guys a few questions that I prepared prior to the meeting. The intent of these questions is basically to help the attendees that are watching this, that are considering Microsoft as a place to work, to help them get a better idea of the culture, within Microsoft. And then, of course, we'll leave some time for question and answers through the comments window, which I'll also read off in the next section. But for this section, I have some prepared questions I'd like to get your answers to. So any of you guys can chime in, or I'll direct some of the questions that I think might be good for specific members of the team to answer. But the first one I wanted to jump on was around Microsoft culture. We have representatives from different minority groups that you guys represent within Microsoft. And a lot of people want to know, what is the Microsoft culture like from a minority's perspective, whether that's being a woman, whether that's being African American, Latino, or whatever your background might be. Do you feel that you can be yourself at Microsoft? And what is it about the Microsoft culture that promotes that?
I can go. This is Kamika. I feel like I definitely can show up as my full, authentic self. And I will tell a quick story about like my previous two employers who I used to work for. I didn't go by Kamika when I worked for them. It was Cam or it was Cammy. And it almost became a joke amongst my friends because Cam and Cammy was this work person who was like super button up, kind of, by the book, all that kind of stuff. And then you had Mika or Kamika outside of work. And, when I showed up, or even before I showed up, my very first interview was over the phone. And the interviewer was like, I just really want to make sure I pronounce your name correctly. They didn't try to shorten it. They didn't try to give any type of, nickname to it, like just super thoughtful in terms of asking that. And it might be something super small, but being a Black woman in corporate America, and I'm an 80s baby, we have these unique names. Sometimes we feel the need that we have to shrink back a little bit. I never felt that here. And I'm always able to show up as Kamika and my experiences and my background and how I grew up and my point of view is valued from that unique perspective. So if I come to work because something happened, that might have affected the entire Black community, I don't have to shrink down around how I feel about what happened outside of work. I can come and bring that person to work. So, and I'm sorry to keep going back to this, but even with this pandemic going on, Kamika, who has an older mom, I didn't have to shrink away from that. I was able to come and say, you know what, I have some additional needs. I may not be married, I may not have kids, but I'm able to show up and my needs are addressed, and everyone's needs aren't going to be the same. So I will say that Microsoft does a really good job of like encouraging everyone to show up as their authentic self, no matter what that might look like. There's no wrong size, and our leadership even reflects that. So we have a ways to go. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think we're doing all the right steps to push that along.
Excellent. So this next question is a big one because we have a lot of people that are on the call or on the webinar that may not be from, they may be considering relocation if they accept a job with Microsoft. So Stanley, you're from Dallas. And I know like a couple of our recent events were with candidates from Texas. And then we have a lot of candidates on this call that are from North Carolina. And I know there's positions within CSEO that are in North Carolina, but then there's always opportunities in headquarters, right, in Washington. So if you could speak to what it was like to relocate to the Pacific Northwest as a minority, and how you've had to, basically, what has been your experience relocating?
So I would say, and sorry for my allergies are acting up. So I would say that I began my adjustment when I went to college. So I went to the California Institute of Technology. And when I went to college, when I went there were 8 Black students, including me, at the entire university. So that was a big shock for me. I think this kind of goes back to what I was saying around, I felt like I had to prove myself. When my first roommate was a guy from Georgia, and the first thing he said to me was, "You're the first Black person I've ever talked to that's intelligent. You don't talk like you have mush in your mouth." Like, that's literally what he said. And there's 2 different ways I could react to that. One is poorly, which is kind of what first came to my head, and the second one was just out excel him, like just do better than him. And it ended up not being his roommate later on, just as a result of that. But like I ended up tutoring him later in classes he was taking, and I felt such joy at that. It was a little petty joy, but it was a good joy. Um, and coming to Microsoft, it actually improved the diversity from the perspective of where I came from in college. So I started that journey of kind of getting into an environment where that wasn't necessarily the case, where I didn't have the same diversity that I had in a place like Dallas. It's definitely an adjustment. It's not the same thing. Like I went to college that was almost 50% black. Not college, high school that was almost 50% black. At college, it was 1% black. At Microsoft, it's not nearly what it should be. It doesn't represent the population well. And it is an adjustment, but it's something that I feel like people do treat you with respect at the company. I've never had an experience like that, like I did in college there. I've always felt like I've been judged on my merits. That people have essentially treated me with respect, regardless of the situation. And I've always felt that my evaluation has always been based on my performance, which is a great thing. And so I've had a good experience with it. There's some things just being in the Northwest that were, this is going to sound somewhat trivial, but it is actually a big deal for me. Like I love barbecue. I never could find good barbecue here. I actually fixed that by learning how to do barbecue. Just finding the right set of friends and connections and things like that all helps. So it's definitely an adjustment if you come from a place that has a much higher black population, but it's not one that I wouldn't say that it's jarring. It's just you have to get used to some of the aspects of just being in an environment that has fewer black people. I actually look at things like the ERGs with blacks at Microsoft and things like that as a great way of building community and creating connections that help, especially people who recently move here. But like all told, it's been a great experience for me.
Okay, excellent. So the next question I like to pose to Jaya and Jessica or Kamika as far as your experience as a software engineer, Jaya, and then also from a program management experience. Any advice you can offer candidates if they're able to land an interview? So from a software engineering perspective, any advice you can offer? And then from a program management interview, any advice and your experience when you interview with Microsoft?
Yeah, I can go first. Well, yes. If for a software engineer, just be ready to code. We expect everyone to code. Even if you're applying for a senior software engineer, everyone, even for a manager level, everyone is expected to code. And then especially, we like to whiteboard. And even for now, we are doing the virtual interviews. We are setting the virtual whiteboard and doing that. And the next one is like listening to the question properly, scope it out, and then respond. We don't want to immediately go ahead and then code it. We usually like to okay, listen, what is the scope you're trying to solve it? What is the out of scope scenarios? Then go for the solution. And then always listen to the feedback. Probably the questions which interviewer asked, the way you understood the question would have been different. So you can double confirm saying that, hey, am I going in this right direction? Or is it good? Especially, I have seen people even people are like just working and then trying to answer the question. We tell them like, hey, can we start coding? Can we do the pseudo coding? We are not like ask them to do that exact coding like a compiler, but just like a high level pseudocode pseudocode level of coding is expected. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, from a program management perspective, what are the interviews like for potential program management candidates?
Yeah, I think I would answer this question in two parts. If you were interviewing as a university hire, most of your questions I would say all of your questions would be just general behavioral questions. Questions like, tell me about a time when you had a really unattainable goal and you had to make a plan to achieve it. Stuff like that. If it weren't for university, if it just for like an internal or industry hire, you should be prepared to answer some case questions. I know people have been asked just really simple case questions with, like a kind of like a business case scenario, like if you were a product manager for, I don't know, Twitter, what would you do if they wanted to expand the word limit to 240 characters, something like that. I literally just made that up, but something like that, like a case question. And so really similar to what Jaya said, like understand the question before you answer. They always give you less information than what is needed to quote unquote solve the problem correctly. So always ask for clarifications and ask for details for certain things. And then I would say the last part is just be yourself. I remember when I went through the process, it was it's called Microsoft Super Day. I don't know if they still call it that, but it's basically a back-to-back in 4-hour-long interviews back to back. And so at the end of the third or the fourth one, you just kind of get mentally exhausted, but like they really just want to get to know you and just be yourself. I remember I answered a question this lady asked me to describe yourself in 3 words, and I was so tired and I couldn't think of the third word, so I just said funny. So I don't know, and she laughed. So I think showing some type of personality, or just being yourself and not being too scripted, just be casual, also takes you a long way.
Kamika, did you want to add anything from a industry hire perspective for program managers?
I would say just be able to really just bring your authentic self to the interview. So kind of Jessica was alluding to being yourself. I think sometimes when we think through like trying to prep for an interview for a really big company, you're so focused on showing that that you have the right answers. But you have to also remember, and this is cliche as it sounds, like you're interviewing them as well. So, think about like your experience. Like you want to, and when I interview candidates, I always like set the stage to say, this is a conversation. And with the ops interviews, we're very intentional about saying that because I don't want you to feel pressured that you have to show up as anyone other than yourself. So be able to just talk through your experiences, whether they're good or bad. There's no quote unquote wrong answer when you're interviewing with Microsoft. And I think that's super important to know because sometimes when you interview with these other tech companies, you sometimes feel like you got these gotcha questions. And that just isn't the experience that I had when I interviewed with Microsoft. And that's not the experience that I offer when I'm interviewing candidates for Microsoft. So just kind of think through like how can you show up authentically as yourself and speak through your experiences, and then also how can you make sure that you're getting what you need from the interview process as well. So try to have thoughtful questions for the people who you're interviewing, of course. I know with the ops process that we did for the industry hires that came through conferences last year, we paired them with buddies to help kind of ease them through some of the interview process. We want to add to our culture. It's not a cultural fit at Microsoft. We're trying to add to our culture, and everybody who's different and authentic, they are adding to our culture. So don't feel like you have to fit this mold within Microsoft. It's so different, and it's so complex from that perspective that the variety of opinions, thoughts, backgrounds is always welcome.
Excellent. So one last question before we go into Q&A from the attendees on the call. And so obviously, everybody's working from home right now due to COVID. But I know a lot of people that are on the call, the candidates, are wondering how Microsoft is responding to the epidemic from the perspective of, products or services that maybe CSEO is working on that have an impact, or things that you guys have had to change internally to be able to support more people that are now working from home, and I'm sure interfacing with Microsoft's products. And then from a employee perspective, what types of things have you have you guys been seeing around, being able to work from home and things that Microsoft has provided for you to continue to be successful at doing your jobs during this crisis?
I'll chime in on that one from the perspective of sales and marketing engineering as an example. One of the changes that we've had is because of the current situation, we've canceled all in-person events. And so we have conferences that have tens of thousands of people at them. Things like Ignite, Build, Aspire, there's a lot of conferences that we have. Most of the larger conferences were in person, and we don't have that anymore. We decided to go fully digital. Just like this, we're not canceling those events. We're still going to hold them. Our internal systems, which my team manages, don't support that level of people. And so we're actually doing engineering work to be able to support these large events and the increased demand for digital conferencing in the moment. In our working from home environment, we are actually doing engineering work to go and improve our vending support so that we can actually have 10,000 person events with sign-ups for different sessions and things like that, all digitally. And it's a good thing because when we do this work, we're doing it in conjunction with the product team, with teams. And we're working on making that product better, make it more suitable. We're not the only ones with that problem. We want to be the solution for our customers for that type of problem. As far as the working from home situation and how it's impacted people, like for my team, there's a lot of things going on to try and keep some normalcy. Like we're not canceling one-on-ones. We're still meeting with employees, still meeting with managers. My team has things like virtual water cooler. There's events that go on for people to be able to connect to the team. There are different themes of the day. Like a couple of days ago, people were sharing their best vacation photos. And so there's ways that people are trying to create connections to one another within the team to make sure that we still have those connections. We don't have a hallway anymore. And that's been a good thing. I think there's also some goodness out of it in that there are portions of our organization that work remotely anyway, that aren't sitting in Redmond and end up working with our team. Some of those people are actually on this call. And having the entire team remote, I actually love the idea that it levels the playing field and not everyone really understands what it's like to be remote and work remotely. So overall, it's not ideal, it's not perfect, but I think in terms of how we've responded to it, I think it's been remarkable, and I'm really proud to work for a company that can have this kind of response to this kind of emergency, both publicly and internally.
Excellent. So I definitely want to give some time for Q&A, the questions that are coming in through the chat. So my ask would be that we try to answer these questions as quick as you guys possibly can. And some of them I'll direct to certain team members, and then other questions I'll just leave open for whoever feels they're equipped to answer. So with that, for the folks that are attending, if you'd like to ask questions, please make the questions as succinct as possible or as short and sweet as possible. And I'll try my best to ask those questions of the team that we have from CSEO today. Okay, so the first question that I see is from Tracy Abone. And her question is around technical program managers. And her question is, are technical program management positions tailored to certain divisions within CSEO, or within CSEO, does every division have technical program management professionals?
Yes. For operations, there are, at least in my role, there's already 2-3 TPMs that I can think of, and I can't imagine that being different anywhere else than company.
Excellent. Yeah, Microsoft is a huge company. And I'm sure there's a lot of program management and technical program management work happening in all of the areas. So next question is from Cindy, and it's around career mobility. So I would think this would be maybe for Stanley, since you've been there for some time now, or even some of the other team members who've been there shortly, but maybe you have experienced moving around or being promoted. So from a career mobility perspective, is that typically limited by some time frame And also, are promotions merit-based or time-based? To be
So
pretty
merit-based. You get promoted because you're doing the job of the next level. As far as mobility, there's not a strict time limit that says, hey, you must work in this group this amount of time before you switch to a different team. Generally speaking, we also don't want to encourage churn, because if everyone moved every 3 months, the company would be in chaos. And so generally speaking, kind of rule of thumb is people expect people to be on a team for about a year before they move around. Not necessarily, it's not strict, and it's not something that we enforce or there's a rule around it. It's more of, if you're moving more than once every year, you're probably creating churn. And so we try and encourage people to stick with it at least a year if they're going to switch positions. And switching positions is very easy. We post all of our jobs are available internally and externally. People can apply to those jobs and interview, and there's no danger of your job being lost. In fact, your manager doesn't even know that you're applying to a job until you've accepted and you're negotiating time frame. And so it's a very safe, no more friction than what you're experiencing right now in terms of making a shift, and all of our positions are available for internal employees as well as external.
excellent. So the next question is from Paula Kennedy. And our question, so the sentiment is, and we get this question a lot to our organization representing Microsoft, and that is, so for example, Microsoft is hiring program managers and they're hiring software engineers as a result of this. But a lot of times people have the talent. So let's say a person has a background in software engineering, programming languages, but instead of being in a company like Microsoft, where they're doing product development, maybe they're in a company where it could be education related or it could be government related, and they're on an IT team and they're developing software for internal applications, or maybe they're even developing software or teaching software. So from what you guys have seen there working at Microsoft or your own personal experience, can you speak to the diversity of backgrounds of employees and how that maps or does not map to a career at Microsoft?
I guess I can take this one as well. Probably one of the smartest and best bosses that I've had. He's a technical fellow, which is essentially the highest engineering level that you can have. He's an art history major. Like, the background that you come from is important in as much as it may open the door and get you the interview. Once you're in that interview, I'm not worried about what you did or where you came from, or like, all I'm worried about is your skill set, how well you solve problems, how well you can fit the role. And so once you get your foot through that door and you're in the interview, it's all about what you show during that interview. You could be the best engineer in the world on paper, and if you don't do well in that interview, I'm probably not going to make the offer. You could have not a great background coming into an interview, and you excel at that interview, I'm going to really, really be willing to make that offer. It's all about how you do, and we're trying to actually figure out, like, how you think and how you approach and solve problems. And if you can do those things, everything else is teachable. Languages are teachable. Skills are teachable. Like, that core smarts, if you got that, you're teachable, and that's really what we look for.
I can actually attest to that. I have a computer science background, and I interviewed with Microsoft before I started my company. And I almost went to work for Microsoft. But the only reason I didn't is because I ended up working for HBCU Connect. But the way the interview went, I was interviewing for a software engineering consulting role. The way the interview went, that was obvious to me that they were looking for intelligence, problem solving abilities, and how you're able to apply that. So kudos to Microsoft for that, and I hope that answers that question. Now, the next question I have, Jaya, if you're still with us, this is a sort of a software engineering question from Michael, and his question is, how many developers are typically on a team, within sections or organizations within CSEO? How large are the teams, and then how often do you meet to discuss solving, challenges or problems and obstacles?
So in our digital workplace team, it's usually 7 to 9, the team capacity. And we do follow all the Agile methodology. So we have a regular meetings for sprint, stand-up, grooming, planning, and everything. For the technical design, it is up to the developer. They can set up a meeting at any time. We usually do for like a sprint one. Sprint is like 2 weeks per sprint. So they can develop within the time period. And also we do review with our architect. We do have an architect in our team. So once the team review is done, we will go for the next level of interview with the architect.
Excellent. So the next question, thank you, Jay. Next question is related to mentoring, and I think maybe Kamika or Jessica, based on your path into Microsoft, you might have interesting answers to this. But do you have mentors there at Microsoft? And the other tie-in is to the ERG groups, which a lot of times play into mentoring. But do you have mentors at Microsoft? And if so, how are they provided, or how did you land a mentor within Microsoft?
I coming in as an Aspire, we were assigned a mentor. They would be an also a previous Aspire. So depending on which channel you come through, you are either assigned a mentor or you kind of just find one naturally. I feel like that's kind of how they happen in most cases. In addition to my assigned mentor, I also from daily hallway discussions or hallway chats or just one-on-ones that I've set up with people that I'm interested in to learn more about their professional career. Through those kind of natural conversations, it's pretty easy to find a mentor, and everyone at Microsoft, they're always very open to mentoring or being a mentee or being a mentor. So there's that. And then also for operations, I can speak on operations. We also have a lot of career development resources where there's a lot of mentoring rings going on. So it's like a reverse mentoring or peer-to-peer mentoring. There's a lot of resources and a lot of different programs that you could be involved in to get yourself a mentor.
Yeah. Adding to Jessica point, we do have like a group mentorship. There are like 6 to 8 people go for a one mentor, and it goes for a 6 months. So we have like a monthly session with the mentor.
Excellent. So this next question is around basically employee growth. So once a person, and this question is from Ashanti Long. So his question is, how does Microsoft encourage internal growth so that one may continue to grow within the company? So let's say they get hired on to work at Microsoft, they start on a project, but they want to continue to grow their skill set, maybe their professional development. How does Microsoft encourage that?
I can answer this. So we are in this season where we are starting to have our end of year quote unquote reviews. We call them connects. And part of my connect, I've always had a career development plan centered around my, actual job of what I wanted to do. Then, what will be my next steps. So I would say there has to be a level of intentionality about, choosing what you want your next steps to look like. And when you're able to really articulate that, you will be able to get the support that you need. So, for example, like I have a background in finance, I have a background in support and sales. It's still of some interest to me. And when I went and talked to my manager about like, hey, what opportunities do I have if I wanted to flex this muscle, I was able to get connected with appropriate people to chat with to see if that's something that I want to do. Or to even learn about the opportunities that are available. So I think there has to be a level of intentionality and being really clear and concise of what you're interested in terms of the next steps to your career development. So once again, very cliche, but your manager is there to support your career goals, but you are ultimately in charge of your career and your career growth. So I think having, where I've been fortunate is having a manager who's really like allowed me to bring forth to the table what I'm interested in, what are my thoughts around my career progression. And I haven't been shy in terms of saying, hey, I want to be promoted. This is what promotion looks like. These are the reasons why I want to be promoted so that I can be placed in a position to get promoted. So being able to learn more skills. And even one thing that I did, or am doing still, is I set up interviews, some of them informational, internally with just stakeholders whose had jobs posted that I was interested in, knowing that I wasn't ready to make that move yet. But when I thought about if I set up these interviews and ask them, hey, what are you looking for? That would help me set up in my current job some of the things that I should start working on so that I can improve that muscle that next job will be looking for. So I like I said, it has to be some intentionality. Leadership's definitely there to support, but we are in charge of our careers.
Excellent. So the next question, appreciate the insight for sure. Next question I'm going to pose to Jaya and Stanley around. So we have a lot of folks that have a background in software engineering on the call. We also have a lot of folks with program management backgrounds, but we have a handful of folks that have a data science background. So within the organization, and I know at the software engineering level, there may be some interfacing that happens between some of the data scientist people on the team. And I recently saw a list of opportunities that included at least a couple of data science opportunities. Can you speak to how data scientists fit into CSEO from what you guys have seen?
I could speak to that a bit. So one of my peer organizations in the Sales and Marketing Shared Experiences organization is the data team. And the data team actually employs professional data scientists. And some of the things that they do, like we actually have what we call AI Builder, which is a machine learning, a place to actually be able to have leverage machine learning models that have been created in the past, shared machine learning models that they've created, as well as other people have created, as well as data sets to go and do machine learning on. And they are full data scientists. Actually, some of them have PhDs, and we have roles for that within the organization. And we do work that requires that kind of work within the organization. There are pockets of it elsewhere in the organization, but the data team's where it focuses.
Adding to Stanley's point, one of the things our end user services organization handling is space utilization, because space being real factor. So we do have the data lake team uses the data, but they have they partnered with the data scientist team to analyze the space utilization and build the machine learning model. So to allocate a new team or when a new person is joining, the space utilization is being handled at the data lake level itself. So that's how we are using them.
Okay, so I want to address one more question before we kind of close out with next steps. And that is around, I've seen this as a reoccurring question, and that is, once you're hired on at Microsoft as a PM or a software engineer, what are the expectations? How fast are you expected to come up to speed, and then have an impact on the projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I can answer that. There is two things. Like one is being the university hire, the next one is an industry hire. Both of them will go for an initial CSEO training just to explain about what is the CSEO process, how is our Scrum Master things works, what are all the DevOps, and then the production support, everything. And we as an industry also will go through the same kind of a training. So if it is an industry experience, if they are in the same kind of a domain knowledge, we expect them in couple of sprints to actually start the coding. But it's not like there is no mandatory requirement is available. So once you get settled into the project and then get all access to all the resources, then you should be able to contribute to the team.
And just to follow up, Jed, with regard to some of the software engineers that are on the call, are you expecting them to have a very specific skill set or a wide range of development skills?
So especially on when we do the interview, we don't check for any language at least. So we just check for like what is the analytical skills they have it, how do they approach to a given problem, because any language can be learned. So there is no specific language is preferred. But once you come into that, we will tell them like, okay, these are all the things it's used for this project. Example, you are coming to on my hub, we tell them, okay, there is a React is being used. You might want to go and learn about React in the plural side and then get trained yourself, and they slowly get assigned to the work.
I just want to chime in on that. And like when we look at events like this, large events, like we're hiring for Microsoft, for CSEO as a whole, and there are positions for every type of skill set that you can imagine in there. And so someone's a database specialist and they're really great with database, we got plenty of opportunity for that. And so I wouldn't think of trying to hone a particular type of talent for this interview, like as far as software development is concerned. It's all like we can leverage all of it. I'll put it that way.
Excellent, because I've seen a lot of those types of questions as well as like specific skill sets. And like I said, we've worked with Microsoft for many years now. And what I see for the people that are being hired, conversations that we're having, is that Microsoft is looking for really good people that are intelligent, that can solve problems, and that are ready to come to work. So with that, I want to transition into our thank you and next steps. So thank you, first of all, to everyone that has joined us, all the attendees, for bringing your talent to the table for us to share with Microsoft. I want to thank all of the Microsoft team members from CSEO for presenting, sharing your experiences, and allowing people to get a better look at the culture within Microsoft and the fact that Microsoft is still hiring despite the current environment that we're in right now. So people should definitely take note of that, and a big thank you to Microsoft for your commitment to diversity hiring and recruiting. So with that, I want to thank everybody and to talk a little bit about next steps. Barty, if you're on the call, if you want to offer any information on the recruitment process, for everybody that is on the call, most of the people that are on the call, you guys would have come through us and submitted your resume. We shared your resumes with the team at Microsoft. And so what they're doing, they're diligently going through all of the resumes to look for candidates that are a fit for roles and openings that are available. One of the questions that I saw, like a reoccurring question through the chat, was how many opportunities are available? How many people will get hired? From what I've seen, there's lots of opportunities available. And Microsoft would love to hire as many of you as possible that are fit for those opportunities. So the ball is sort of in our court to review your resumes. If you have not submitted your resume, the link is right here on the screen. It's hbcunonnect.com/Microsoft/CSEO. If you go to that form, you can submit your resume and I'll share it with the recruiter. But with that, Barty, did you have any additional comments for recruitment process and what people can expect?
Yeah, so thank you, Will, and thank you everyone for joining the event today and making it successful. And I'm actually very excited on the prospects of, interacting and working with you in the future. So I know we are running out of time, so I'll quickly kind of, briefly tell you. So there will be 3 steps in the process. So once the candidate is gonna, send their or submit their resume on the link, we will be kind of going through all those resumes, and Jesse is the point of contact, and then he will be setting up the technical screen or /ops screen for the operations PM candidates. And once the candidate pass the screens, we will be advancing them for the virtual interviews. There'll be 3 interviews. Possibly in one day, and then there'll be a scheduler who will be working with the candidate as well as the interviewing team to kind of confirm the the schedules based on the mutual availability. And the third step going to be the outcome and communication. And I will be the point of contact who will be, I'll be reaching out all the candidates who will be interviewing with us, and passing on the outcomes and updating them about the decision. If it is going to the offer and all that stage, then I will still be continuing the point of contact. So throw us all the questions you have. If we have answers, even if it is not related with the recruiting, let us know. If we don't have the answers, we will pull in the right folks to help us out to get you the answers. So yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that insight on the recruitment process. And to all the candidates, thank you again for making this a reality, because if you guys don't show up for these events, it's not likely that we will continue to do them. So the fact that you guys showed up helps us to continue to do this. Further, don't be discouraged if you're not able to land an interview with CSEO. We'll be working with Microsoft and different teams within Microsoft to help people get placed in opportunities. And we're, as a matter of fact, we're having an event next week as well. So you guys will receive a communication on that and in the future. But I hope you learned a lot about core services, engineering, and operations. I hope lots of your questions were answered. And I'm going to see if I can get the log of questions that were not answered and come up with a Q&A in written format to email out to everyone that attended. But we'll also have the video to share with attendees, so you can watch the full video if you missed any of it. But with that, just wanted to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to the Microsoft team. Thank you to the attendees, and to Microsoft in general for just continuing to show your commitment to hire from diverse communities. So thank you.
And well, big thank you to you too.
Appreciate it. With that, thank you everyone. And that will adjourn our webinar and meeting. And you guys can look forward to an email directly from me as a follow-up. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.